Welcome to Glow Up in Grace podcast, where faith meets real life. I'm your host, Dr. Deborah Owens, and together we'll explore hope, healing, and the kind of grace that transforms our stories. Let's dive in. I would like to start this first episode by explaining why this podcast exists and why it's so dear to my heart. So in 2020, in about May of 2020, my husband and I decided to start a podcast together. We called it Wisdom for Today. It was during a time, obviously, of the pandemic, and none of us knew what the coronavirus was. And many people had questions. Many people were afraid. Many people were dying. And quite frankly, we felt, my husband's a minister, quite frankly, we felt that we needed to do something to encourage people and point them to the Bible. And so we started Wisdom for Today. We absolutely enjoyed doing our podcast. We enjoyed making the connections with our followers and sharing our wisdom and giving inspiration, especially during that very difficult time in our country. And it was an unusual time. And so we really, truly enjoyed doing that. But unfortunately, towards the end of 2020, in fact, a couple of days after Thanksgiving, my husband had an accident that would change our lives. And so we had to put Wisdom for Today on pause. We had to put many things on pause for a minute. And during that time, we went through a season of revamping and listening to God and trying to figure out what would be next for us and for our ministry. And it became a wilderness time, quite frankly. But I have to say that God met me there during this time. We have children, and I became his primary caregiver. So I'm parenting and I'm caregiving, and a lot of the things that he used to do, I now had to do. And it was just a lot on my plate. But I did find time to reflect and pursue God. And during that time, I have to say that God met me. And I would say particularly in the past 2 years or so, with all of the devastation that has been going on in our country and around the world, we've seen an increase in mass shootings and gun violence, natural disasters. Right here in Texas, just a week ago. By the time you receive this, it'll be longer than that. But at the point that I'm taping this, just a week ago, there was a devastating flooding that happened not too far from where we live, maybe about 2 hours, 2.5 hours away from where we live. And we've had the California fires and just so many devastating things. And I asked myself last year, I would say around October, November, I asked myself, I wonder if the people who are suddenly leaving out of here, not due to illness or anything like that, but just suddenly, did they hear the good news of Jesus Christ? Did they receive the Lord? I wondered about that, and it was heavy on my heart. In fact, I was honored to speak at our church last November, and I talked about Peter's life and talked about when the Lord gave Peter the Great Commission. And so the Great Commission has been impressed on my heart. And I started thinking, podcast is a great way to share the gospel, to encourage people, and reach people for Christ. And so I started praying about it, sharing the idea with a few trusted friends, and I had several people to tell me that I should go forward with it. I felt the prompting of the Lord, and so the name Glow Up in Grace dropped in my spirit. We often hear about level up in our culture. The younger generation, they say level up. They're leveling up to the next level. We want to go higher. We want to do better. And so Glow Up in Grace came to me because that's what we want to do. We want to move from glory to glory. And it is truly God's grace that has kept me and my family, and I'm sure that has kept many of us if we're Christ followers. And I started pursuing it. I started putting things in place, and lo and behold, 1 week before my birthday, I started moving in the direction of getting the podcast off the ground, and birthday came and we celebrated. And then 1 week after my birthday, I had a freak accident that landed me in a hospital with a skin graft on both my hands. I don't know if you can see this, but both my hands. And it was one more thing to put me on pause. Once again, I was devastated. I was in pain. My hands were bandaged for a while. I had to have wound care. My donor site was my leg. This was something that I was not anticipating. It just came out of nowhere. Just a very freak, unfortunate accident. But during that time, I made a commitment to God and to myself, regardless of what happens, that I was going to heed the call, and start this podcast and share message of hope, discuss trauma, discuss parenting, discuss caregiving, not just for women, but for men. And build a community of people who are seeking to level up. In my case, we're glowing up. We're glowing up, and we're saying, let our faith meet our glow up. Let our faith meet our glow up. So I want you to pray for my podcast. Pray that the Lord would give me the right content that would reach people with the message of salvation, of hope. Minister to those who are broken. It was during the time that God met me in my broken places, in my brokenness. And there is just so much to share, but this first episode was just to give you a little backdrop of why I chose to do a podcast. and call it Glow Up in Grace. And there's so many other podcasts out there. There's so many other women who are doing a great job teaching the Bible and ministering to others. But in a time that we're living in, a time like this one, a time like no other, where everything seems heavy and weighty, and people are still feeling like 2020 with the pandemic, afraid, anxious, worried, for various reasons, but also with so many unknowns, so many different variables. I truly feel that there's room for one more podcast, and that's the Glow Up in Grace. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll follow me. I hope you'll tell others about Glow Up in Grace. And I can't wait to see what God is going to do through the humble beginnings of this podcast, Glow Up in Grace. Pray for me, and God bless you. Thanks for joining me today on Glow Up in Grace podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share this with a friend, and follow us on Instagram at Glow Up in Grace Podcast for more encouragement.